Imagine a young kid just 20 years of age entering the world of boxing and gunning it out with some of the veterans. But unlike many other newcomers, he just keeps on winning. Well, this is exactly who Abdullah Mason is, and the lightweight superstar is slowly clawing his way closer and closer to the coveted title. With his current record standing at 16-0, with 14 of these bouts decided by knockout, the youngster certainly seems like he's in incredible form and on his way to challenging the biggest prize in the world of boxing. But let's find out, who is Abdullah Mason? Born in Bedford, Ohio, the young Abdullah Mason has been considered one of the brightest talents in the U.S. amateur system. However, his journey into the sport is not exactly what you'd expect, and instead of suffering his way through learning the art, he was actually trained by his father. He subsequently also became his coach. Abdullah and his three brothers also have the same training process, with Amir currently boasting a record 4-1, Adel Mason boasting a record of 1-0, and his other brother, Abdurrahman Mason, also has the same single-fight record. In fact, Abdullah has been surrounded by boxing all his life, and having such a tight-knit support system has allowed the brothers to create a sense of unity, with everyone helping the other as new fights seem to pop up. Having such a unique support system based on unity is sure to set up the young 20-year-old for success, who seems to be relishing his opportunity as seen in some of his matches. For instance, Mason averages around 45% of his power punches connecting, whereas he only absorbs around 30% from his opponent. But how does his technique differ from that of his opponents? As mentioned in a recent match, Mason managed to connect with around 45% of his power punches, and his punches do pack a lot of power. However, it's not just the punching power of the young man that seems to rattle his opponents. One of the most impressive skills for this southpaw boxer is clearly his ability to shift his weight effectively around the ring, and this enables him to generate the much-needed power, despite only fighting in the lightweight division. Adding to his already impressive repertoire is the fact that he can also retreat into a defensive position. Mason possesses incredible agility, allowing him to easily back out of power punches, while also dodging those quick jabs that seem to wear down opponents. Thanks to this combination of power and speed, he's one of the most adaptable fighters in the world. It also makes him quite the opponent for other boxers, who often have to spend a lot of time trying to study his movements. But it's not only his technique that's so impressive. Many people tend to forget the strategic approach Mason often applies to his fights. If you look at one of the greatest ever strategic fighters, Floyd Mayweather, it's quite similar to how Mason studies his opponents. However, this studying doesn't necessarily take place outside the ring, but also happens to be important before the fight even takes place. With hours of film time spent according to those close to Mason, he's quite observant when it comes to seeing the various weaknesses of his opponents before the two ever set foot inside the ring. In fact, his recent matches have shown this magnificent strength. During the recent bout against Johan Vasquez, who's one of the contenders for Bout of the Year, the young 20-year-old showed his boxing intelligence. Mason noticed that after each jab, Vasquez had this tendency to drop his guard, and this left him completely exposed. Mason took the opportunity, landing effective uppercuts each time the jab missed, which ultimately put him into the ascension. However, this technique was also really effective in many of his other fights, where he would quickly take control of the bout by dictating the pace and lulling his opponents into a false sense of security. By all accounts, the level of professionalism and tactics is something even a young Mike Tyson had struggled with earlier in his career, but does also bring back memories of the great Muhammad Ali, who would effectively use his speed as a way of dictating pace and wearing his opponents down. Unlike Ali though, Mason has a devastating punch that can end a fight with a single blow. Now, for many of you watching who perhaps haven't heard about Mason that much, perhaps looking at his record can give you an even better idea of his performance. Mason started as an amateur like many of his peers, but he was immediately regarded as the brightest prospect in the American amateur system. At the tender age of just 13, he already won the Eastern Regional Open, before following it up with a Junior Open in 2018 and 2019. Mason ultimately became the USA Boxing Youth National Champion in 2021, and his amateur career finished with a record of 65 wins and just 15 losses. Moving on to the bigger leagues, he would sign his first contract with Top Rank the following year. Mason easily won his first bout, fighting an undercard fight on the Michaela Mayer vs. Maeva Hamadouche card. The next few bouts would all go the same, with Mason winning either by TKO or a straight knockout. However, his two bouts that went to a unanimous decision against Angel Rebelar and Cesar Villaraga were definitely two of the most unique bouts, in which the youngster utterly dominated both of his opponents, but didn't manage to land that killer blow. But many young boxers have come through the ranks, all boasting impressive records, but only to lose them as they move up the ranks and have to endure some of the more experienced fighters. The big question many people might have is whether or not Abdullah Mason has the potential to one day become a world champion. As of this video, the future seems bright, and with Mason having such a great support system, it seems like he's currently focused on reaching the pinnacle of the lightweight division. Analysts agree that as he moves up in the ranks, he will also gain some valuable experience, which should serve him well once he faces down the champions. The other real benefit for Mason is that his impressive boxing style and skills are also drawing the attention of the media. This increased level of attraction is precisely what boxing promoters are seeking, especially since popularity plays a vital role when it comes to being paid in this sport. Many experts agree that he should be ready to compete for regional titles as soon as next year, and this will inevitably open up more doors for a world championship bout. To put this into even more perspective, it's also worth noting that Mason has been rapidly growing his fan base. Current estimates suggest that in the last 6 months, his performances have yielded him a popularity increase of about 30%. This current trajectory is sure to set him up for significant future success. Two of the greatest names in boxing are often used when it comes to measuring the talent of upcoming stars. Unfortunately, Mason has not yet achieved the legendary status of people like Muhammad Ali and Floyd Mayweather, but he does share some of the same qualities as these two stars. His incredible confidence and footwork is what clearly makes him a viable contender for whatever the future holds, and this has a tendency to disrupt the momentum of his opponents. A similar tactic to what Conor McGregor seems to use when entering his fights. Contemporary champions like Canelo Alvarez have a completely different style, mostly focusing on power to ensure their punches can do the most damage possible. Alvarez is also quite popular for his adaptable style, which makes him change tactics on the fly, a skill Mason still has to spend some time learning. But every current expert, analyst, and even current boxer is sure that this young man is perhaps the next big thing in the world of boxing. With a massive future in front of him, it seems like Abdullah Mason could become the next man to carry the flag for US boxing. His incredible drive, resilience, and dedication are sure to make a big difference in many of his upcoming bouts. But what do you think about the future lightweight star? Is he truly the next Mayweather or Ali? Or will he fall flat once he starts challenging for the title?